So that's called as requirement gathering. Non-functional requirement gathering, simply we used to call it as non-functional requirement gathering, NFRs. Simply we used to call it as NFR gathering. So what is that? So in NFR gathering, what we can do? So let's take you are the client, I'm the vendor. Now you said you told to me, so can you test my application? Okay, then as I'm the performance tester, now how I can gather the requirements from you? Okay, so first what I have to do, first I have to set up a meeting with all the stakeholders. I can say identify the required stakeholders, business analyst, infrastructure team. Why we have to identify those teams means, so they will provide the actual details, I can say actual application related information, they can pass it. Okay, then organize and gather the business requirements. First of all, what is their business requirement? Like, what is the purpose of they developed that application? What is the purpose of developed their application? Now convert business requirement into performance requirements and metrics. Now whatever I can say their business requirements, get those requirements and convert into our performance testing requirements. That we can see in the next slides. Then run workshop for knowledge transfer. Okay, no problem. So that's called as, I can say it's kind of, so workshop means do the work, I can say run book, prepare the run book, whatever topics we have discussed with the client, prepare that run book so that it will be helpful for, I can say, further teammates who are planning to join in your team. So no need to get it KT once again from the client. So he can just review or go through that run book. Now test planning. So this is the high level first screen. Then we can go to the each and every phase. I can say requirement analysis phase, test plan phase, design and test execution and reporting phase. Okay. So next one, collect the business critical transactions. Collect the business critical transactions. Determine the required test volumes. Prepare entry and exit criteria. Next, prepare the schedules for testing and testing estimations. Check the infrastructure availability. So this we can see in detail of how we can prepare the test plan. And sample test plan I can share it to you. I already included in this PPT. You can just download the test plan as well. Okay. Then test design. Once you completed the test plan preparation and you got approval on your test plan from the client, then you can move to the test design where you can prepare your scripts and customize your script. Then identify the pre-test and post-test test procedures, determine the test customization requirements and prerequisites, isolate monitoring requirements and metrics to be collected, create and review test cases, create and review workload scenarios. So once you completed all the test scripting with all the customizations, then we can move into test execution. So where you can perform like smoke test, I can say execute smoke test or sanity or dry run test, all are same only. So there is no confusion. And set up the required environment monitors, execute test and collect the results, share the test results with project team, schedule the next execution cycle after the resolution of the issues. Now that reporting, so correlate test results from different test cycles, prepare the test summary document, test summary presentation to the stakeholders, sign off. So once you get sign off, where our entire performance testing life cycle are completed. Okay, now let's see the first one, requirement analysis. That's called as non-functional requirement gathering. Non-functional requirement gathering. Okay, so how you can gather the non-functional, I can say, requirement from the client. So what is your approach? So the first one is introduce performance testing team to the client, prepare the KT plan and share to the client. What do you mean by KT plan? Means knowledge transfer plan. Okay, so what do you mean by knowledge transfer plan? Means, so in the KT, in the knowledge transfer plan in the Excel or maybe Word document, you can prepare whatever requirements you have to get from the client. You can prepare those and share to the client, so that client will provide those walkthroughs, or maybe in the meetings they will explain and they will give all the appropriate data. Okay, next, set up meeting with development team or BA team. Will discuss an overview of an application. Okay, so when they provide the application overview, which means overview means the application walkthrough. So how, like it means what are the workflows we have to test it, how to navigate those workflows, these kind of walkthroughs, the development team or BA means business analyst, or sometimes subject matter expert also there, SMEs, where they can walk through the application. So they will navigate with all the workflows. Again, workflows means that navigations. Okay, so based on that navigations, you can find out like which scenarios we can consider, scenario in terms of which workflow we have to consider for performance testing, right? Then, so the approach, like, is the application in production or development stage? Okay, so you can ask this question, either this application in production or it's newly developed application. Now, existing application with enhancements, then ask development team, or BA they won't provide, ask development team if they are using any log analysis tools. So log analysis means, so if application already in production means live application. So live application means the users will be access the application, right? The users will be perform different activities, right? So those activities, I can say those activities will be stored in terms of the logs. Where that logs will be stored means the logs will be available in the application server. The logs will be available in the application server. Those called as server logs. So if application already in production means definitely that application related server logs will be available in the application server. Okay, so what we have to do with application server logs means, so the server log will contain all user activities for specific duration. I can say, for example, if I want server log for 3 months or 4 months, all 3-4 months activities, whatever activities done by user, those activities will be stored in the log file. What we can do with that log file? When you analyze that log, you come to know like how many users are accessed your application in that time frame. I can say in the 3 months duration, how many users are accessed, I can say active in your application. Say let's take suppose in 3 months, so the users, let's take a sample example, 1000 users are accessed my application. In 3 months, I can say all 1000 users may not be accessed on every day, right? So maybe one day 500 people are accessed my application. Maybe in another day 100 people. Like another day maybe 50 people. I can say 50 people in terms of 50 users. In one day, assume that 1000 users are accessing my application. So can I say the peak users are 1000 users, which means at one day only max 1000 users are accessed my application. Am I correct? So those users called we used to consider as peak volume or peak user load. Okay, so then we can, from the server log, we can find out what are the users, what are the navigations they performed frequently. They performed frequently. If you take 1000 users, 1000 users will navigate on the different screens, right, in the application. So in 1000 users, what are the maximum users are performed or navigated the maximum screens? Maybe 500, I can say 10 screens. 100 users are navigated another 5 screens. 5 screens means 5 pages. So which means 500 users I can say navigated 10 pages, which means can we say those are the most visited pages in last 3 months, which is those pages are very important, I can say very critical to that particular application. Okay, that kind of information we can get in the server logs. Okay, but you cannot analyze server logs directly. Why? Because server logs are in unreadable format. Server logs are in unreadable format. Then what's our task? Then we have to convert that unreadable format into readable format. For that, we have log analysis tools. There are various log analysis tools are there. What you have to do is, once you got log file from the application team, then you have to analyze that logs using log analysis tools by importing that log file into that log analysis tool. Called, I can say, just given the one of the tools called like WebTrend tool or log analyzer tool. WebTrend tool or log analyzer tool. If you want, just we can just quickly check that what WebTrend tool and log analysis tool will do. So WebTrend tool, right? WebTrend report, I can say WebTrend analytics, right? So this is the one of the tool I can say. So where you can request for free trial, that's okay. No, if you see here, let me give this. I can say it's not there. No problems. Analytics. Let's say this, whether it having any data. No problems. It's not there. That's okay. So you can just check here. I can say just sample example: document interaction, social interaction, list interactions of human resources. This many, times. I can say times in terms of users are accessed human resources. Sales, those many users are accessed. Those I can say like this. It will give. So we'll try that. We'll try to install we'll try to install the trial version, and we'll get some server logs. Okay, let me check sample server logs if we can get it online. Sample server logs. That's okay, no problems. Later we can see. Okay, now let's go back to our PPT. Okay, so we can get it log file and upload that log file into the log analysis tool, where the log analysis tool will analyze the logs, and it will give a graphical representation of that what are the most visited pages. I can say frequently visited pages, what is the max active users are there in that 3 months duration, what is the maximum user load. I can say user load means active users are there, what is the concurrent users, what frequently visited pages. Like that, it will give a graphical representation of your log information. So based on that, you can find out, okay, these are the scenarios. I can say scenarios means workflows. I can say the pages which are very important. I can say very critical to that particular application. Okay, so how it works means which scenarios are generates more revenue of that particular application, and which scenarios are frequently accessed of from that application. So based on those conditions, we can identify which scenarios are critical and which scenarios are simple, medium, complex. And also we can find out what is the concurrent user load and simultaneous user load based on that log analysis tools. Okay, now next one, what about if newly developed application? If newly developed application, so the application not in the production, right? It's newly developed, it's not yet moved into the production. Then there is no server logs will be available. Then we have to work with the development team and find out non-functional requirements like business flows and user load. This should be get it from the development team, because we don't know, so we cannot analyze that newly developed application using the log analysis tool, since we don't have any log files. Ask dev team or BA team to share the application architecture diagram. Now, do you know the importance of architecture? We discussed about 2-tier and 3-tier and n-tier architecture. And prepare the business flows documentation. Okay. Now, a standard templates to gather the performance test requirements and prepare the business flows. Now, let's see that. So, these are the a sample, not sample, the performance testing requirement. I can say non-functional requirement. Documents are here. You have to share this document to the client and get the requirements. Now, let's see the first one. Okay, now just read that introduction. So let me maximize. Okay, so this document consists a set of questions that will help us to understand our performance testing needs and hence facilitate the proposing the best solution. Please mention your preferences, response against the questions provided. In case there are choice provided, please tick against the preferred option. If any questions according to you is not applicable, please mention not applicable against it. Now let's say the first one, performance test requirement. Now what is the first question we have to ask the client? What is the main purpose of testing the application? Right. If I ask that question, let's assume you are the client. I'm the vendor. I'm planning to test your application. I'm asking a question to the client. Why you are planning to test your application? Then there may be a chance, I can say, maybe there may be a condition. Maybe you developed a new application or existing application, you are migrating from one technology to another technology, or you changed infrastructure, or you increased the infrastructure, or maybe another condition. Now if you see pre-production testing of new application software, which means I have developed a newly application. Now I want to test my application to see how my application performance. Migrating to newer version or new software or hardware, need to check the performance before and after migration of pre-production environment. Pre-production testing of new hardware or infrastructure. Now assume that so the first three options are not applicable for my application, then you can specify in the others what your application related. Okay. Now next one, what is the planned rollout schedule for release under test? Either it's pilot rollout or production. I can say so. It's pilot means only few piece of code they developed. Or pilot, I can say production rollout means they developed entire application and they are planning to move into the production once completion of performance testing. Okay, now what are the various business flows that need to be tested in your application? Also, what is the load percentage of each of the flows? What are the various business flows that need to be tested in your application? Also, what is the load percentage of each flow? So where they can enter the business flow and complexity, we discussed about medium, high, low priority. And what is the maximum, I can say, what is the number of users we can assign for each business flows. Okay, and next one, what is the expected transaction response time for critical transactions? Okay, so the critical transactions, and what is the minimum response time, what is the maximum, and what is the average response time it should be means that's called as SLA, service level agreement. It means my transaction response time should not cross more than 5 seconds, which means, can I say, so the average transaction response time should not cross 5 seconds means my average transaction response time is 5 seconds, and maximum is it should not cross 10 seconds. Then I can keep 10 seconds is my maximum response time. Minimum is, let's keep as 2 seconds example. So which means minimum is 2 seconds, max is 10 seconds. It should not cross max 10, and average is 5 seconds. And please specify the type of application: client server application, internet based application, LAN or WAN based application, or any other application. Next, how many users are typically access the system? Right? Either it's less than 50 or 50 to 500 or 500 to 1000 or more than 1000. Now, what are the expected maximum concurrent and peak load on the application? So either it may be concurrent load may be 500 and peak load may be 1000 users. What are the models that would you like to stress the application? Only LAN or LAN and WAN, LAN, WAN and internet. Select which approach would suit you for performing the load testing on your application. So completely offshore by replicating the production environment, offshore on-site by using already existing environment, on-site onshore model through remote connectivity to the offshore. Now, what are the types of tests that need to be done? Load test, stress test, volume test, endurance test, spike test, and batch job test. This is batch jobs. That's not related to you guys. Okay. Then system environment. Now you can see what application, web and database servers are used in your application architecture or environment, and in how many numbers. Now, can it relate it to our prerequisites about this question? We discussed about web app and database servers, right? Then what application server, web server, what database servers are used in your application architecture or environment? Then how many web, how many app, how many database servers are used it? Correct? Now, what is the protocol used by the client to communicate to the server? Now, did we discuss about the communication protocols? Correct? And the hardware and software configuration of web application and database server. What is their configurations? Network components like proxy, any firewalls existing between these application components, we specify. Please include the application architecture diagram. This should describe application flow from end user to backend, application components like web server, application server, and any external systems if it connected, and along with protocols used for communication, configuration of hardware and software for all the components, and network components also. Okay. And in the general information, do you have any automation performance testing tools? If yes, provide. And provide the list of performance testing tools, like which tool, what is the version, which protocol license we have, what is the protocol license. I can say how many virtual user license we have. Okay. And did you intend to monitor the system resources for isolating resource bottlenecks on the target environment? If you have any APM tools, I can say to monitor the servers, you you can mention. Do you have any specific tool to monitor the systems? Then yes, you can mention what are the tools. Do you want to perform any scripting maintenance activity with the existing scripts or in the future? If yes, if any existing scripts they have, so they can share with that. And please provide the contact information, so to whom we have to reach if any issues or any type of data we require. Okay, that kind of information we can get it from the client. Okay, this is the one of the non-functional requirement gathering documentation. Okay, now let's see the another one, non-functional requirement gathering documentation. Now similar way only, but some of the one or two questions will be different. What is the current project timelines to begin and close the testing activity? I just give an example. Is the application functionality stable and its functional testing is completed? What type of performance testing should be performed? Load, stress, endurance, or whatever it may be. What are the goals of performance testing activity? What will be the acceptance criteria for each performance test? These are the questions you have to ask to the client. And what type of application, either client side, client server, or web-based or mobile app, in which technology or platform the system is developed, which database used for this system, which application server is running in the systems, what is the protocol between client and server. For web application, is the client browser version is dependent? Will you provide us a separate test environment to do the performance test run? And have you identified the performance test scenarios for your system? Do you have the statistics like how many users visit your site in 24 hours or maybe 2 hours, 1 month or 2 months or 3 months? And how do you see user accessing the application? What is the average user session time on your system? How many transactions does end user do per day in the application? And how much important in sitting location of your end users? Did they sit in same location or different location? Do you set acceptable maximum transaction completion time? What is the peak load time on the production server? On peak load time, roughly how many users are accessing the system? What will be the workload model? Would you like to share any additional information? And this is another calculation. That's okay, no problems. Okay, like this, you have to ask the questions to the team, I can say either development team or BA team or SME team to get the requirements. If you ask the question, you will get response from the client, right? Okay, this is my requirements. Correct? So based on this questionnaire documentations, you used to get all the information, right? Now you can convert these requirements into the performance test plan. You have to convert this NFRs into performance test plan, and that we can see in the next slide. But let's see, this is the sample performance business workflow documentation. Now let's see the sample one. So see performance test scenarios high level. So scenario, I can say first scenario, what is the module, in the module what scenario we are going to test it. The scenario contains list of steps, so they can provide those steps, and if any test data we have to use, we can include the test data, and what is the transaction names and each transaction response time SLA. This is the sample high level business scenario Excel sheet where they can give all these details. Okay. Alright guys, so like this, you can share all this questionnaire documentation in, I can say, questionnaire documentation with the team, and during that call you can ask these many questions and you can get the response from the client, or maybe development team, or product owner, or subject matter expert, or BAS. So like this, you have to get the requirements from the client. Okay, so any confusion guys, how we can get the requirements from the client? So by asking the, I can say, by working with them and setting the meeting and give application walkthrough, and during the walkthrough you can ask the questions to get the requirements, and you can share this questionnaire documentation with them and fill all the details, right? So based on that, whatever information they filled it, and we can walk through those details, whether that is relevant for us or not, I can say that will help us or not, right? And also you can share that high level business flows Excel sheet where they can add a list of business scenarios, and each business scenario of the steps. Okay, so like this you have to gather the requirements, I can say the performance testing requirements, performance testing non-functional requirements, simply called as NFRs. Okay. Any confusion guys on this? Just go, I will share this PPT with you all. You can just go through this PPT so that you can, at least you come to know like what type of questions we have to ask to the client to get the non-functional requirements. Alright, and let's see now what is next one. Test planning. So based on requirement analysis, we have to do the POC before start the test planning. So what do you mean by POC? Means proof of concept. So the proof of concepts will help to identify the tool evaluation and suitable protocol. All tools in place, use those tools like LoadRunner, Performance Center, or SkyScope, or AppDynamics, or Dynatrace, whatever tools they have. If client wants temporary license, this is for L&T purpose. We want to showcase our capability. That is the reason we mentioned that option. If client want temporary license like monthly, quarterly, or half yearly, license based tools, LoadRunner, L&T have shared license for LoadRunner to reduce the tool cost. If we need to go with open source tools, then we can go with, but we have to define what are the challenges and the limitations that open source tools have. You have to explain to the client, right? Then, so based on the requirement analysis and POC, we have to prepare the performance test plan document. This document contains the following steps. What is the purpose? What is the objective of our test plan? I can say our performance testing. System overview. What are the scenarios are in scope, out of scope? PT requirements, load model, performance test approach, performance test schedule, test deliverables, risk, test instance, roles and responsibilities, and a standard performance test plan document for each project. So I just added one sample performance test plan in this PPT. If you see performance test plan for IMAP application, where you can see all the details. Correct. So in the introduction, purpose, objective, reference, glossary of definition, system overview, system description, in scope, out of scope, assumptions, performance test, requirements, user profile, performance test SLA, load model, test data for performance test approach, performance test methodology, performance test design and execution, closure, best practices, performance test schedule, test deliverables, risk, test instance, test implementation, what are the tools we have used, what are the metrics we have to monitor from client side as well as server side, and roles and responsibilities, and if any open issues. So like this, you have to prepare your performance test plan of your application. So you can just go through the detailed documentation here. I kept a sample, not sample, this is the one of the project which I was worked. So I kept that test plan itself. Okay, so you have to prepare the performance test plan. But when it comes into the experience level, if you have 3 years, if you are planning to keep 3 years or 2.5 or 3.5 like that, you can say, yes, I partially involved on the performance test plan preparation with the help of my performance, I can say my test lead as well as project manager. You can directly say, if they ask the question in the interview, have you involved on test plan preparation? Yes, I have involved, but I partially prepared the high level performance test plan, and my lead and my project manager, we together reviewed the performance test plan and did modifications, and final version of performance test plan my project manager shared to the client. So like that, you can you can answer that question, and they may ask what are the points you have included in the performance test plan. So that is the reason. So you have to by heart. The first one, I can say, this or this. You have to by heart this contents. Okay, there is no other choice. You have to by heart this content. Okay, so once you gather the requirements, so we have to convert the requirements into test plan. So this is the sample test plan I shared with you. If you see the test plan contains 28 pages. So just to go through this, 28-page test plan documentation, guys. Okay. Clear, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so just to go through and let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So that we can rediscuss if required. Alright, guys. So like this, you have to prepare the performance test plan. So, and you have to share that performance test plan to the client to get sign off. Okay, then test environment access. Test environment access means on which environment we are planning to conduct our performance testing, either it's UAT environment or QA environment or performance test environment or staging environment. So we have to get access of that environment. Alright, now test design. So in test design, various components are involved. One second, guys. I'm getting call. Okay, so in test design, I can say what are the components will be involved in the test design. So test design is nothing but we have to start the scripting of our business scenarios. Okay, so that is create and review the test scripts, define the transaction names, comments for each step, insert think time between start and end transaction, parameterization, correlation, create and review the test data, verify the runtime settings of your scripts, and execute multiple iterations of all your scripts to make sure your scripts are working perfectly. Then you can get it. I can say that scripts will be reviewed from the client side. I can say client side team. Then they will provide sign off on your scripting. So once you completed the scripting, then the next phase called execution, test design and execution. That's called as test environment close to production as possible. Why means, so say let's take, I can give a sample example why we need similar to production environment to do the performance testing. Say let's take a sample example. In production we have 5 web servers, 6 application servers and 6 database servers are there in the production. But when it comes into the performance testing environment, in performance testing environment we have 2 web servers, 3 application servers and 3 database servers. Can I say it's the perf environment is half of our production environment? Correct? So which means in performance environment, I can say the performance environment handles 500 concurrent users. Can I say in production can handle 1000 concurrent users? Why? Because production environment is, I can say, double of when compared with performance environment. Performance environment contains only 2 web servers, 3 application servers, 3 database servers. But whereas production having 5 web servers, 6 application servers and 6 database servers, which are double of performance environment, the production. Correct? But when comes into the performance testing environment, so we are not considering like half of the production environment, 1/3 of production environment, 1/4 of production environment. We have to try to get equivalent to production environment of our performance environment. Which means what environment we are planning to conduct our test executions, so that environment should be equivalent to production environment, which means whatever configuration the production contains, similar configuration required for our performance environment. Then only we can get accurate results. Otherwise, you may say if the less configuration is there, ultimately the users may not support those many, I can say those much users may not support of that environment. Correct? So that is the reason. So if you see the name as clone, so it should be similar whatever environment. If you see the staging deployment and production deployment should be in same configuration. Okay, so close to production as possible. How to adjust of inconsistency between the test and production, building the environment, test the environments, QA or pre-prod, and test execution. Now if you see what you can it means what you understand by seeing this picture. Everyone, so what you teamwork, very good. Exactly. So the teamwork means, so in order to execute or run the load test, we need support from all the teams. Why? Because so without any support of application team or database team or web server team or network team, we don't know where the failures are occurring. Say, assume that I'm only the performance tester, so no other team's support is there. Then I started one load test and my load test is failing. So I cannot give the details like why my test got failed. So that is the reason when you are doing the test executions, you have to involve all the teams like performance testing team as well as application team, database team, like web server team as well as network team. Why? Because we have to see if any network failures also occurs. So make sure that when you are planning to run the test, before start of the test, you have to send an email to all the teams saying that I'm planning to run the test. Please monitor your respective components. Your respective components. Yes. Once again, guys, sorry. So before start of the test execution, so you have to send an email to all the teams letting them know that you are planning to conducting the load test execution. I can say not only load test, whatever test you are planning to execute it, you can send an email to the teams, right? Now, test execution. So following activities are involved in the performance test execution. Validate the test environment, baseline and benchmark, validate the test, run the test and do the monitoring. Do the monitoring. Okay. Then, so what are the teams will be involved? I can say in the test execution and monitoring. So performance test execution, who is the responsible? Performance testing team. Monitoring web, app and database servers, who is the responsible? Web server team, app server team and database server team. If any monitoring tools we are using to monitor the servers like Sitescope and eHealth monitoring tools, then performance testing team is the responsibility. Why? Because we have the access to monitoring tools to monitor the servers, right? So then test execution. So test execution, so you will be starting the load test execution. For test execution, you build the load test templates, blah 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 things. Define the SLA or set of critical criteria for successful test. Configure the load generator machines, monitors, define different type of tests. I can say design different type of tests, baseline, load, stress, volume, endurance tests, run different tests and scenario to check the system capability, stability and endurance and scalability. Once you completed the test execution, if you are observing any failures, do the code tuning and rerun the test. Like that, you can conduct all rounds of test executions. Once you completed all rounds of test executions and you got the all the response times within the SLA, then you can get test execution sign off. Alright, then reporting. So reporting in terms of, so once you completed the test execution, you have to analyze the test results and you have to prepare the results report by including all the graphs. I can say you can include the summary report as well as client side metrics graphs and server side metric graphs and high level observations. If any response times comparison, we can do the response times comparison of previous test and current test. And if any requests you are observing failures or high response times, you can provide those requested details by picking them from the APM tool, I can say the monitoring tool, and you can share all this information to all the teams through email of your load test. I can say your test results report. Not only load test, all test results reports. Okay. And what are the metrics we have to collect? I can say I just given the sample metrics. When comes into the client side metrics, there are few graphs are there. I can say metrics we can call, and web app server metrics and database server metrics. These are the CPU and memory utilization of the servers. That is the common metrics. Apart from, there are many metrics are there. Due to this PPT, I just given only few metrics. Okay. Then if you see that the basic metrics can be collected as follows: average transaction response time, graph, hits per second, throughput, CPU utilization of all servers should not exceed 80%. Right? And test conclusion, I can say prepare the test summary documentation, test summary presentation to the stakeholders, get sign off from the client to complete our performance testing. Now if you see the sample closure report document, how it looks like. If you see, now if you see that a sample example, let me maximize, you can read. So Collect Connect application enables, this is the blah blah story I can say about the scenarios, all this. Now if you see, the main objective was to check response times, hits per second, throughput, WEF server CPU and memory utilization, and overall stability as to support maximum concurrent users possible with a target of 920 concurrency. What is the max user load we tested? 920 users. The test execution was conducted from 5th of May 2014 through 30th of July 2014, which means close to 3 months we completely performed executions only. How many executions we have done? 77 test executions we have done to optimize the code. So if you see, these are the business flows, I can say business scenarios we have tested. Homepage via internet, pay and tax, health and insurance, investment and retirement, career link, my attendance, personal information, access ESS, address change, access team viewer, team details page, access work list, social follow unfollow, social post, access location map, employee ID submission. Now these are the, I can say, let's see that. So business flows and user load distribution. What is the user load distribution? We did it. So homepage 100% user load distribution with 920 users. Next one, homepage with combination of all this. Homepage with 40%, which means 200 users. Pay and tax 10% means 50 users. Health and insurance 4% of it means 20 user. Load like this, we have distributed the user load. Right? So like this, so you can prepare all the details, and you can include all the details, and also in the last you can see the scenarios. So home page test 920 users, all transaction test with 500 users, and soak test 300 users. If you see how much duration we have executed soak test, 8 hours, correct? So like this, we have executed all the test executions. And if you see the tunings, application level tunings, whatever tunings we have done, if you see, there are many tunings that happened for this application. So that is the reason, we have executed 77 rounds of load test executions we have done in order to fine tune the application. And if you see the report, I have attached the report also. Okay, if you see here, so 920 users and home page test server metrics, all transactions report, 500 user load test, all transaction server statistics, and soak test with, if you see, 8 hours 20 minutes. Right. I'm sorry. All servers, if you see server CPU and memory utilization. So like this, you have to prepare the consolidated report, that's called as closure report. If you see all the transactions, I can say whatever types tests we have done. If you see, so first 15 users, 15 seconds, 15 and 50 users, 200 users, 200 blah blah blah, all like, if you see. So how many tests we have done? We have done 77 tests. All right. So like that, you can include our all test executions and in the consolidated, or I can say the closure report. So you can share this closure report to the client, and you can get sign off from the client to complete our performance test. Complete our performance testing. So like this, you have to do the entire performance testing life cycle, which starts with gathering the non-functional requirement, preparing, I can say, do the initial POC, preparing the initial performance test plan, then do the scripting with all the customizations and test design and execution. Design various scenarios like load test, stress test, volume test, endurance test, and execute them, and prepare the load test results report. And if any tunings are required, they is to tune and re-execute those tests and re-prepare those results reports. And then you can share that reports to all the stakeholders. Then once you completed all the test executions, then finally you can prepare the consolidated report or test summary report, performance test summary report, and you can share that summary report to the client to get sign off of our entire performance testing activity. All right, guys. Okay, so I will share this PPT with you guys. Okay, please revisit this PPT and just navigate. I can say not just navigate all the slides and understand what are the topics, like how it done, I can say it completed for each phase. Okay, it's very important. The first question starts with performance testing life cycle only. The first one is NFR, non-functional requirement gathering. How you can gather the NFRs, right? So what about if your application in production or your application is newly developed application, how we can gather requirements from the client? Okay, you have to by heart those questions which we have, right? Enough questions we have, right? Here we have the questions, right? Enough for gathering questions. You have to by heart these questions. If how you can gather the requirements means you have to ask these questions to get requirements from the client. What type of questions you will ask to the client to get the NFRs, right? So like this you have to by heart. Okay, there is no other option available to you at this moment. Why? Because you are the at this moment you are in learning stage, right? So once you get hands-on experience, then you can directly attempt the interviews, like you can directly answer that questions. But at this moment you have to by heart this list of questions. Okay, all right, so that's about the entire performance testing life cycle, simply called as PTLC. Okay, I will share this PPT with you guys. Please go through this PPT and maybe 1 or 2 days, maybe I can say either Saturday. So I want everyone to present this slide, and you have to explain this slide, and you have to, like, during the explanation I will ask few set of questions. You have to ready to answer those questions. All right, so there is no excuse. So that is the reason I am giving 2 days time. Please read this PPT, okay, and check all the attachments, and be ready with the question and answers. Okay, there is no excuse, guys. So Sunday I will ask questions on the performance testing life cycle. Okay, so everyone please go through this PPT and read the content, all the content, and open those documents, whatever document attached in that PPT. Just open those documents and review the data, whatever data it contains, each documents, and be ready for that. Okay. Okay, so any questions, guys, from your side? Let's continue with the questionnaire.
What is bottleneck?
Issues, right? So that kind of details will be called as bottlenecks.
Okay.